So hello everybody, my name is Gita Rajan and I'm a medical doctor specialized in family medicine. I'm also head of the WONSA clinic. WONSA stands for World of No Sexual Abuse. And we have a specialist clinic where we treat all kinds of consequences after sexual abuse. And I just think I'll start because we have had a very long day and I think everybody's hungry. Before I start, I would like to just say a few words from what we've heard this morning from all these very lovely people. I want to say thank you to Ruth McNally for her presentation. I usually, and you maybe, I mean it doesn't really matter, but I thought I wanted to get a little bit personal before I start the presentation. So you don't have to actually record this way, if you don't mind. I just want to say to her that I'm also a survivor, which of course is not the secret, but it's not the topic of my presentation today. But as a survivor, I want to thank her. I also want to thank you for your presentation, and I really want to stress that don't force children to talk. Really don't force them. Just as Ruth, I wasn't able to talk about this or even to recall these before my perpetrator, which was my grandfather. I always say it was my Swedish grandfather, because otherwise people will just think it was my Indian grandfather. This cultural aspect. But anyway, it was my Swedish educated, polite grandfather who did this between the age of 2 and 11. It was not until he died that I could talk about this. And even if they had asked me, I would not have been able to tell them, and it's not our responsibility. It does really hurt people to disclose and not being believed. And until we can assure the children, not just that we believe them, but also that we can help them, we should not ask them. That is my opinion. However, we can always see them, and I think that we should bathe our children in love, whether they're our own or anybody else's. I think that's all, and maybe you should just pick up my old presentation, if that one works. Okay. So at least we have something. So, in my presentation, I wanted to start just by saying that WONSA was founded 5 years ago, and it was from the experience that I have myself and that I had from working within NGOs for 10 years, and the experience I shared with my medical colleagues, that these patients had nowhere to go. They were not understood. There was no systematic way of getting close to the subject or to give them treatment. So we started, and what we saw when we had this very open-minded approach to the patient, we have no gatekeepers. Anyone who has the experience that they have been sexually abused, whether they remember it or not, and if they feel they have problems because of this, then they are welcome. Now people have asked us, but then anyone can come, you can't have a clinic for anyone. But the fact is that when we have this approach, 80% of our patients have been repeatedly penetrated from early childhood. Or 90% actually, 80% by incest. Ah, thank you. It's very dark.
It will be okay in a few seconds.
Okay. So 80% is more or less incest, 10% is organized sexual trading from early childhood, and 10% had their first sexual abuse when they were adults. The average time for disclosure is 11.5 years, and the median time for the duration is 7.5 years. Now these numbers include also single rapes, which means that the proper number for those with childhood abuse is more like 20 years before disclosure and longer term. Right, so this is WONSA. Which one am I supposed to? Oh, it's not working, so please, next one.
It should
You'll
work.
be very busy for the coming 10 minutes.
It should work. Try it again.
I guess it's that one. Right. So we'll just keep going here for a while. Or not.
I did it.
So the next one, please. Yes. So I know I have very limited time. I think I have 10 minutes left. So I'll go straight on with what I think we can, what we have focused on with these patients. That is to work systematically to help our staff not becoming secondary traumatized, to help our clients to disclose in a not re-traumatizing way, and to facilitate treatment, evaluation, and research. So, given the time we have, I'll go directly on this one, which is a classification for sexual abuse. If we are lucky, this will be published before the end of the year. So the aim of it is to work just as we do if we had broken a leg, okay? We found that when we started and had our treatment conferences and so on in the beginning, and we had to talk about everything that had happened, like now we have this patient, it's gone through this and this and this and that, we could not think anymore because we were so sad, we could feel the pain, and we could not think. So we really found that we have to be able to communicate in a more effective way. So to go this. So it's three-dimensional. First we talk about the type of sexual abuse. Oh, this is the old one. Yeah, right. Thank you anyway. If you please look at your papers. You have the new one on the third page. So it's three-dimensional. It's the type of sexual abuse. It's also abuser relations or abuser characteristics. And then it's specific contexts. Could I please have one so maybe I can, thank you, so I can follow myself. When we use this one, when we have the conferences, we can just say, listen, we have a new patient. It's a type 4A, who can take it? And everybody already knows what this is about. Of course, we can get more specific, but actually this is quite enough because we know what that means. Then you can use this with the client as well when you do the assessment. You choose which one to take. Of course, you have to make this decision upon how the person reacts. 90% of our patients are adults. Some are stable, some are not stable at all. Some can talk, some cannot talk. But if I assess that they can do this, then I will choose someone and ask them just to point with a finger. What is applicable for you? And then we don't need to talk about it anymore. You can also take the abuser characteristics, and I'll ask them just to point what is applicable for you. Maybe the specific context is too much for them, then we just don't do it. When the treatment starts, the therapist can fill this in without actually talking to the client or the patient about it, because it comes up in the conversation. Oh, sorry. I'm really sorry. Type 1, non-contact abuse. Type 2, contact abuse. Type 3, penetrative attempt. Type 4, penetrative abuse. Age at onset is like child, youth, and adult. And duration and frequency, in the simplest form, is if it's just one occasion, or if it is repeatedly. When it comes to abuser characteristics, it's family, other dependency, intimate partner, known or unknown. Age at onset for the abuser is the same, and then it's the gender of the abuser. Specific context could be if there are more abusers at the same time, if it's through internet, if it's child marriages, if it's disability of the victim, if it's severe psychological violence, etc. Organized abuse is important not to remember, or not to forget. Then if you look at it at the second page, it's much more specific, and that is useful for trauma planning, but even more for the research. Now this is kind of basic research, because we need to know more. So this is not a final document. It's constructed in order to be able to develop. But we have to be broad. And we have to be humble enough to admit that we know very, very little. Which is a shame, but it is a fact. When we did this one, first of all, we made observations at the clinic. Then we had peer discussions. In the next step, we involved the patients. So 2,136 patients, survivors of sexual abuse, have validated this one. And this was really, really important to us, because we didn't want this classification to be another betrayal on the list, where we don't really ask them, what is important to you? What matters in the healing course? What is a no-no? What do you don't want? What is completely irrelevant? And so on. So this is we find this is really, really important, that they have actually, over 2,000 survivors who have actually looked through this and have added a lot of subcategories and categories. So you can take the next one, I think, or just go on. You just keep going, because this is all. So keep going. So, how many minutes? Thank you. So, from this one, we have developed a syndrome that we call sexual abuse injury syndrome. This has also been in conversation with the survivors. We find that it's really helpful for them to understand that all the different diagnoses and symptoms that they have are not because they are weak. It's because they've been injured. It's also important for them to feel that they are that they stick together. They're already so very dissociative and fragmented. They need to feel that they are one person. So instead of telling them that you have this and this and this and this and this and this and this, you have sexual abuse injury syndrome. And that all includes what you feel. So if you take the next one, this one is also a little bit old, but in the ground for the theory, we have a sexual abuse alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, which are experiences that we find that everyone who has been exposed to sexual abuse experience at some level. So A is abandonment, B is betrayal, C is confusion, D is disgust and shame, E is elimination of borders, F is fear, and G is guilt. All these experiences that you get, even if you just go across the schoolyard and someone calls you, scream, you're a whore. You feel these experiences, you have these experiences, but maybe not very extremely high, but you have them. And the more intense you have these experiences, the longer you go with them without treatment, and the younger you are when they start, the more symptoms you get. You can take the next one. And then you can take the next one. So we have leveled this sexual abuse injury syndrome 5 different levels in order for healthcare staff to decide on what healthcare level they need treatment. I'm very, very sorry to say that in Sweden, I would say that all levels need to be taken care of within a specialist clinic, because the knowledge is not spread. But these ones normally don't come because it's enough that they get believed and saved and get help to restore their borders. These ones should be able to be taken care of anywhere, because it's a simple PTSD, more or less. These ones, they have been repeatedly abused, but not within the closest family. So they don't have very much of developmental trauma disorder in the best cases. this one always needs specialist care, I would say. And if you take another one, now this is a little bit misspelled, but if you put it into the theoretical frame that is already existing, you can see that this is the primary dissociative structure, this is the second, and that the third one. Next one, please. You can also use the PTSD in complex PTSD. Next one, please. You can also use the developmental trauma disorder. To use this one, you have to use all the A scores, the first child experiences scores. You have to add them to the WSAC, WONSA sexual abuse classification. I think I'm run out of time, right? So, if you can, no, doesn't matter. In the new presentation, we have a picture from our new website. It's mission at WONSA, no, mission.wonsa.org. And what we say is, it is possible to eliminate the aftermath of sexual abuse. It's not easy, but it is possible to be done. The two most single important things among everything that everybody has said is that you need to lower the arousal of the right hemisphere of the brain. Because before you can do that, you can't talk. You need to anchor the traumatic memories. You have to help the hippocampus to anchor it. When you do that, after that, you can start talking and doing that. If you're interested in our research and in our work, please go to our website, mission.wonsa.org. You can just write your name and we will get in contact with you. We have a lot of different studies coming up. For example, one for anchoring memories, where we actually have the same or better results as prolonged exposure, but in 1/10 of the time. For single traumas, we give one treatment and they have the same results. So a lot of things are coming up. Please visit our website and thank you very much for this conference.